Welcome to the offer portion of the course. This is the first part where we actually start to make the first step towards possession. So this is where we actually put in the offer, also known as the contract. And I want to use this section specifically to discuss really the rundown or kind of an overview of the contract. That way, when you are approached with this, you have a much better understanding of what it entails and what that process looks like. Okay, so the contract can be very overwhelming at first. It is, depending on the different forms and documents that we put into it, anywhere from like 25 to 35 pages in length. So it's a pretty hefty document. I've got this double printed on both sides and 2 pages per sheet, and it's still pretty overwhelming. And I think the first thing to really understand is when you put in an offer. So I think we always hear, are you going to make an offer on that house? What we are really also implying is that the offer actually is the contract. So we've gone through, we've seen the show, we've done showings, and we see a property, we've got our pre-approval, and we're ready to now make an offer on a property. What we actually do is fill out an initial contract. And that's what I'm going to break down today. And that's actually what's submitted to the other party, the selling party. And then they check off whether they agree to those terms or not. If they do not agree to those terms, they could submit a counter offer. And at that point, they would put in what they want to change or their contingencies. They would send it back to us. And if we check off on it, it becomes a ratified contract at that point. So both parties have agreed, and now we're moving forward in this process. So again, now to give you a quick rundown, again, these are all very specific, but there are some fundamental things that go into a contract. And so what I'm going to do, like I said, I've got this right in front of me just to make sure that I don't miss any of the major points, to just make you more aware of what to expect when you do get a contract, okay? And so on the first page, we're running through, it's going to be very basic information. So what is going to be the purchase price? What address are we, or what property are we doing? Those things are signified by the address of the location. We put the address, our names, what is the actual purchase price going to be, as well as the earnest money deposit, which I'll do in the next video, go on what that entitles. So essentially, we're going to put the purchase price and the earnest money. On the next page, we're going to put any kind of closing cost assistance. So if this is something that we want to negotiate with the seller to cover, a fiscal amount or a percentage, we can put that into the contract and have that be a part of our negotiation. The next one is, do you intend to occupy? So that's going to be a big one, whether you are going to actually live in the property or this is going to be an investment property. That is very important, especially when it comes to the loan type, which on this page as well, we do notify what loan type we are going to be using for purchasing this property. Moving through, the next ones are going to be whether this is going to be what kind of property type this is. So a few videos ago, we talked about condo associations, property owners association, HOAs. So we need to list those if that property we are purchasing is a part of one of those communities, as well as what are those fees going to be. If it's not, then we just move on. But those are things that we do need to put inside of this contract. The next one is going to be the termite and moisture inspection. So in addition to the home inspection, the termite and moisture inspection, those are 2 separate inspections that we go through on the front end. So today we just had a home inspection, which has been 5 days after our ratified contract. So this is pretty much the first checkpoint in the home buying process, where you get a certified home inspector to come out, and they come through with the microscope. They're going to check every single part, the roof, the crawl space. If it's on a crawl space, they check all the electrical, the water, the plumbing, just to make sure, and they note off anything that is going to be a problem. And in this contract, we set who is responsible for scheduling that, as well as the amount of time that we have, whether it's 7-10 days to get that home inspection done. Same with the termite and moisture, because you'll notice in a transaction, there are certain checkpoints. So for instance, once you ratify a contract, in this contract, we have 7 days to get the home inspected. Now, the next checkpoint on our timeline is within 7 days, we must get a home inspection and send in a PIC report with all of the repairs that we request. And if we miss deadlines, all of those places are now opportunities to release from that contract. So we would be in breach of contract. We would lose our earnest money deposit if the seller did decide to leave. And that's why there is very important timeline checkpoints in here that we need to be done in a timely manner. And all of those numbers are listed in this contract. Okay, so moving on. We do have another one is just to notify whether we're on septic or city water. So that is important because then we need to get the septic tank service. We need to make sure that that is up to par. If not, if it's on city water, then we don't need to worry about those things. We do, when do we plan to close? So that's going to be a big one. Is this going to be a 7-day close, cash close for an investment? Or is this going to be a typical 30-day close for a primary residence? Or is there something that's going on? Maybe you need to extend your lease, or you have a lease that you're renting out and it doesn't end until the end of the month. And now we actually need to push it out to 60-day close. So these are all things that we put into the negotiation. Or maybe the seller has a contingency that they need to sell their home or find another home before they can sell theirs. So no matter what it is, this is where it comes down to the uniqueness of each transaction, but the closing time is a negotiation on both ends. It can be shorter, it can be longer based on preferences of both parties. Another big thing is going to be what items convey. And so I'm not going to say it's typical or not typical, depending on what kind of property you're getting, what the condition is, or what the circumstances of the seller are. There are a lot of times that you won't have appliances conveyed. So you might go show a house, it might have a refrigerator, microwave, or washer dryer present at the time of the showing, but that seller actually intends to take those items, those appliances with them into their new property. And so those are things that, if they are not marked on the contract, you are not obligated to keep them, and they can take them, and then you'll be left without a washer dryer. And these are all things that need to come out of pocket. So they can add up at the end of the day. If you've already just put your down payment, paid your closing costs, and now you have to put another $1,500 in appliances, those things are unforeseen that you don't want to encounter. And so we are very strict about every single thing that's going to convey, whether it's the fire alarms all the way down to the microwave oven. And so that is all part of this contract, and those are things that are put in and checked off by both parties. So a very important section. The contingencies, the condo fees, yep. And then moving on to the last page, the other main part of the meat of the agreement is going to be the aircraft noise. And so that's in all of them, but being in Norfolk, this one's actually very important because being around a military base and an airport, you have to notify the seller or the buyer that you are in a noise zone or you are not in a noise zone. So if they need to be expecting planes flying over at all hours and, blowing the eardrums out, they need to be aware of that. Or if it's in a crash zone. So is there potential of a crash from that military base, from the airport, during drills or anything like that? So those are all notified and listed in the agreement. And those are going to be the big ticket items, okay? So understand that the first, 16 pages is going to be really, it's templated, but it's unique to that specific property. The rest of the contract is generally disclosures. And so these are going to be the cookie cutter items. It's 7 pages of disclosures that are given to everyone, like lead paint, for example. So if it was built before 78, then there's a chance it has lead paint. And those are things that need to be notified. With lead paint, the only way to really fix it is to encapsulate it, aka just paint over it. There's things like Megan laws where we have to be notified of understanding that is a law and you are responsible for your own personal due diligence about looking for sex offenders in the area, whether you have small kids, that could be a deal breaker. And so it's just a big list of disclosures of different things that are generalized and not necessarily specific to that property. But on day one, whenever you're generally working with a realtor, when you fill out that contract, especially with us, we go through that thing line by line, so you're very aware of exactly what you are signing and what the agreement entails. But that becomes the contract. And so we hand that over to the seller. If they agree, then they ratify it. If not, they send us a counteroffer, and then we can negotiate from there. But that's the big portion of the offer. And then from there, we move into the next section. So on the next video, I'm going to go into the EMD. What is that? Why do we have that? And what does it mean?